Vince Vaughn. Oh, Vince Vaughn.
Oh, that's fun.
Tell me when we're on. Hey, we're on, baby.
There he goes.
Vince Vaughn.
Is he going to take us out?
They're watching that right there.
Okay.
Is that on? We're on together?
Here we are.
There's Vince Vaughn.
Let's
Chicago.
do this.
You know this song, don't you?
To take me out, I'm not a professional.
Hey,
So.
we're going to talk about collectibles in a second, but about baseball cards, baseball collecting. Vince Vaughn is one of my favorite actors. And take me out. Can you sing it? All game. Take me out with the crowd.
There you go.
Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
Oh, wait, now I'm singing. Look at this. You got me doing everything.
Ever come back to the... Come on, Vince. Get it going. All right, we're good with Vince.
He wants to get that game going.
Okay, so we're with David Gindy, Collectibles, one of a kind.
Yes, one of a kind.
And the reason he's here, we're going to talk about my baseball card collection. I have cards all years, different players. It's, some of these are my favorite players, but that doesn't mean they're going to be one of my favorite valuable cards. Am I correct?
Correct. Well, it's not just about the player. It's actually condition is everything when it comes to cards. And the more modern cards, they're not quite as valuable. They're called the wax pack. Very few of them are really worth much at all. But then it comes down to the grading, and grading is by a couple different companies like PSA and SGC, and they're the ones who will look at the card. They'll determine its condition. A little different than autographs in the sense, because it comes down to the exact centering on the card. I mean, to the millimeter.
Yeah, but the card came not cut even.
Well, that's what's strange is you'd think that in modern, even in the 80s and that day, every card would be exactly centered and everything. But no, you'll find where it's off to the left, off to the right, a little top. So to get a perfectly centered card with perfect corners, by the way, with no bumps on the corners, no creases, no scratches. And then it has to be a desirable and rarer card. That's what there are some people looking for.
Okay, so
but in general, the modern material is not so
how
great.
About this?
This is some older.
Can you read that guy's name?
You got Colts. You got Macaulay, right? And Don. Yeah, and
his son played pro, and his grandchildren plays pro. Did you know that?
Well, I know you're
Tommy,
a sports guy,
producer. What? I didn't know. Sanford. He graduated Sanford. He plays for. He's that great running back. So. Right. I love catching Tommy because he knows every player in all sports.
Well, I see you. You got.
Yes.
I see you have football there. You have baseball. I know you have basketball. And that's what's interesting. Now, football cards in general aren't as valuable. I mean,
why?
There wasn't as many collectors, and they just only the rare ones.
Okay, let's use Michael Jordan. I had a Michael Jordan. I go,
right.
I got a Michael Jordan. It's a rookie. It looks great.
Right.
Then I take it to a store because I'm going to make money.
Right. And
the guy goes, well, you have to go get it graded.
Right.
And then top it all, look at the corners. They're dented a little bit.
Correct.
So, this card was, I don't know, it was like $15,000 on eBay. Then he brings out his magnifying glass and says, there's a scratch. I said, there's no scratch on there.
Right.
And so he gives it to me and he goes, to the naked eye, it's not a scratch.
Right.
He says, if it's a perfect 10, you get money. If it's not, it's just like the rest.
Well, you're talking about the Jordans. Now, that's something that's just happened. That's gone crazy. Basically, the Jordans have.
What about LeBron?
Well, let's talk about Jordan for a second because this went through the roof. They came out with the show, in March when did it come out? The series in
Michael Jordan series, Tommy.
It just came out recently.
During COVID.
Yeah.
During COVID, which is
that's last 5 years.
Yeah, but what happened was, I think because so many people, because of that, and just so many collectors at home, and even investors started looking at the card in a different way, and that card has gone from where you could have bought it for $30,000-$40,000 some years ago. It went for $750,000.
Well, because I get on my phone and I go, okay, I'm gonna Google some player.
Right,
and it pops up eBay.
Well, this is what I was saying. So that card went for they went for up to
How about Billy Ripken?
$750,000, but that value has gone down a little already. What happened was, they're still up there, by the way. I mean, if you have the perfect one, we're talking perfect once again, the corners and everything else. I think that there were so many people at home due to COVID, and a lot of people were working at home, and they started getting into their cards again, and it renewed interest in the collect. I mean, it's always been collectors, of course, but just the value started to escalate. And we saw a big change in the cards. Matter of fact, so much so that PSA, one of the grading companies, has stopped taking cards totally until July. Now, when I say totally, except for if you're going to pay $300 or more to get a card graded, one card graded, then they'll accept it. And it's still going to take 3 to 6 weeks probably now. And regular cards that they used to have a turnover in a couple weeks are now taking a year, literally a year. The ones that they're sitting, matter of fact, there are people that are wondering if they're going to be able to get to it because they have so much of a backlog of the cards.
Well, it's interesting.
Right.
You know, I think I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cards.
Right.
But when I go through here and after talking to you, I go, most of them were damaged because as a kid, you played with them.
Well, you played with them, but they can be even damaged the moment you took them out of the pack. I mean, especially when the gum used to stick on it and maybe pulled off a little.
And gum never
speck
stuck
of it.
because I chewed it.
You'd probably get right to the pack. Now, what's interesting is packs are going to become valuable. They already are, but I believe they're going to become more valuable because what's happened is since the cards have gone so much, right? Everybody's opening up their packs with the hopes that they're going to get the 10 rookie Jordan or, you know, one of these types of cards. And so I think there's not going to be that many packs left. And there are people who collect even
and there's a new card, a pack for like $70, the high-end cards.
Well, this is where it's gone crazy from my perspective. Now, you know, I've been dealing in this for over 40 years with the different, you know, the autographs of famous people, signed photos, you know, baseballs, everything of this nature. And what's happened is they've tried to do it a couple times, but usually a collectible isn't created as a collectible. Not truly. That's not the ones that really usually become valuable, but they've been able to do it now. With the Panini, there's been cards where they're making chrome refractors, 2 of 2, or 1 of 2, and they're making very limited runs, and those it worked. Those cards are going for a lot of money now.
Tommy went to a card show, our producer, and bought a Michael Jordan. Who was it?
No, Pete Rose, 1961 Pete Rose.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
For
68, I forget what it was, but it was $40, but the value of it on the grading thing was like almost $100.
Right. And it was it graded?
Yeah, it was graded.
All right, so you got a good deal.
Oh, and it was encased, right?
Yeah.
See, now here's the tough thing. Now when you're going to look, let's say you get that exact card, right? If it's going to cost you, now they've raised the price, by the way, for grading. It could be $25 a card at the rate we're going.
Right.
So now if you have a $80 card and it costs you $25 to grade and you bought it for $30, you have $55. In other words, on a lower end card, it's actually going to really start changing the hobby the way things are going.
Does it matter what state you're in? It's like if we're in Chicago, would a Michael Jordan card be more valuable?
No, well, that's the internet's changed all that. Okay. In other words, even in my auction, I have people in France, Italy, Germany, Australia buying from me, of course, locally, California. So what happens is you can reach everybody in the world.
But it's funny because I'm around looking the Cubs player. Joe, what was the former manager of the Yankees? Joe, how do you pronounce it? The other one, Joe, G-I-R. Who is the man? Yeah.
He wasn't a Cubs guy.
That's not him? He didn't play as a Cubs?
He might have played for him.
Yes, but I make a point. I enjoy this. I look at, this was a manager.
Well, see, that's the thing. This is one of the things I could see with the cards, and that's one thing with sports is you're passionate about it, so you really enjoy it, and that's what's fun about collectibles. And what's interesting is
let's talk about the baseballs.
You know, if you get into any type of different sports, so we could talk about some balls here.
Yeah, cards. You need to, if you really think they're valuable, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's your webpage.
Yes,
email?
oakauctions.com.
If you think you have a good card, call him. He'll tell you what to do. But let's talk about autographs because I have, I have Tommy Stiff. I signed his autograph everywhere.
Well, here's the thing with the autographs. You really have to know what you're doing. Now, I've been doing this for over 40 years, believe it or not. I've been a collector even before that, and been dealing in it over 30, and the more you see, the more you know. Now, even in signed baseballs, you have to be careful because even though this baseball could be signed by all the players except for one of the ones, like let's say this on the sweet spot, you'll see a Mickey Mantle there. Well, that's actually a Mickey Mantle. It's a clubhouse signature, which means it was signed on his behalf.
But how do you know that?
Well, it's actually just a formation of the M's and the way it was written. This is about 1955, so it's a nice.
So all the other signatures are real?
The other signatures are real.
But why did Mickey Mantle sign that one?
Well, because they had a clubhouse guy who was signing for him. I mean, another example is, and of course we have the real ones in the auctions. I mean, when I say the real ones, signed by the players themselves and Roberto Clemente. But here's another interesting one. This is Jackie Robinson and the whole team. But what's amazing is this was one signer who would sign in the clubhouse. It's called Clubhouse Signatures. And he actually was able to replicate almost every autograph almost exactly right. I mean, there's little
So you have to, so when you look at that ball that you're going to put in your auction, now you can't sell it.
Well, you can actually sell it as a secretarial, but it's no longer the Pittsburgh Pirates Jackie Robinson signed team ball. And the other thing about it, what's interesting is if you look at it, there's little things that you can instantly see with the Robinson, with the way the R is and things of this nature that you can tell. So it's one of those things that it's kind of a fun hobby, but you have to be careful. You have to buy from reputable sources. Now we're talking about sports,
but let's talk about this thing.
Oh, sure. Well, this is okay. I have a a couple different things to
show it all.
This is
take me out to the ball.
No,
I'm sorry.
Sports. Because we're talking Washington here. I mean,
Okay.
you can't go from George Washington.
The Washington Senators.
George Washington.
Oh, okay.
That guy.
Okay.
And what happens is here, if you take a look here, I guess you'll see this is actually a beautiful document.
Right there.
It's right here. You can see it's actually the Cincinnati Society of Cincinnati.
What is that?
Well, that's the earliest known organization actually for like patriotic to
Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's actually called. Well, let me explain. This is signed by George Washington here, okay,
right.
And you'll see the signature is a little on the light side, and it's signed by Henry Knox as well.
Who's that?
Fort Knox, that one.
Oh, okay.
He was also the Secretary of War at the time. This is considered, it's on parchment, this one. And one of the things about that is it's the earliest known, like I said, group that actually was an appreciation of the American Revolution. So these were given to important people that were part of the Revolution. And it's signed by George Washington, which, of course, our first president, commander-in-chief. And this document is considered one of the most beautiful documents. It was originally framed. And you can see on the edges, and that's one thing about framing. You have to be careful.
Okay, so if I get this in the bid, do I know where this came from and where it came from before and before?
Well, yeah. Well, what's great about this is you actually can see who it's to. It's all written up to within the auction, and you'll be able to follow that this particular document. They have records of every one of these that was given, so you will be.
So who's that given to?
This one is, I believe it's John Hershey, actually, and basically he was, he fought in the Revolution, which is what most of them are for.
Okay,
now,
so
he's not as famous as some others.
Okay, so John Hershey, and then you'll have the track where this.
Yeah, we can actually follow it.
That's
but what's
cool.
Great is, you go into that to a little of everything. And then you have here, this is actually a contract for feature films signed by Bud and Abbott, Abbott Costello.
No way.
Yeah, see, I know. I liked Abbott Costello. I used to watch
I love it.
Who's
on second? Why is on third?
We got back to baseball somehow.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Pretty good.
But anyways, so and then you have, and these are different things, and you can see this one.
What year is that?
This one, 1951.
Wow.
1951. And there, like you said, who's on first? I mean, what a great comedy.
What's the other thing? What's the other sheet you just had?
Oh, well, this sheet was just actually, sometimes we do have other certificates with it just showing authenticity and everything.
Right.
But you don't really, like I said, this is one of these things. This is actually a contract and everything. There's really no question about it if you know what you're looking at. This is just a nice Woodrow Wilson signed photo. President, and it's just a clean, nice image.
And how much does that go for?
Well, it's probably $400 to $600 on something like this. The Washington would go anywhere from $7,000 to $11,000. The Bud and Abbott, that could go anywhere from $300 to $500.
Wow.
So it depends. I mean, this is kind of a neat piece. This is actually
show center camera.
Okay, great. This is actually a stock. And it's actually signed by John D. Rockefeller and Henry Flagler, which, of course, important Florida guy.
And how much does that go for?
This is actually pretty valuable. These go for about $3,000 to $500. People like the John D. Rockefeller Standard Oil signed stock.
Okay, next one.
This is here. We're just going through some interesting pieces. This is fun because this is Allen Ginsberg, and it's a poem, but it's actually
Allen Ginsberg. Who's Allen Ginsberg?
Allen Ginsberg. He's actually a, he was an activist, of course, write poems and things of that nature. And this is an
Who was he married to?
unpublished poem. I'm sorry, what?
Who was he married to?
I have no idea.
You know?
No,
Okay.
not really. And then we have all kinds of different items. So you have Theodore Roosevelt. This is a typed letter by Theodore Roosevelt. But what's interesting is it's signed by him, of course. But what's interesting is he's going into all the different positions he held, like as a police officer,
So
as
who
a
is he sending
magistrate.
this to?
He's sending it to
A judge. I saw that.
yeah, and it was a Judge Ranson, it looks like. And he's basically going on to all the different positions that he had held. So all these different things, what's great about history is it tells you something. It tells you a story. Here's this is actually, it looks like a small little piece, right? In the sense it's an old pamphlet. It's the Declaration of the Anti-Slavery Convention, but assembled December 1833. But it's actually also the Women's Convention. So they were getting together right here, assembled in Philadelphia. And this is one of the earliest assembled conventions. And it was actually, the women were, when I say the women would get together. And this was actually a very important piece. What?
One of the issues at the Women Convention.
One of the issues, well, it was the main one that was about anti-slavery. This was before they were fighting for women's suffrage as much.
Right.
Because this is 1830s. But this is the only known pamphlet from this.
And how much is that?
Group. Well, you know what? It's hard to put a price on this. It's actually unique. There is a known, what they would call broadside from this same convention on silk, kind of like on a silk, and it goes for about $6,000 to $8,000. This is the only pamphlet.
Wow.
Now. So if you're a collector, it's interesting. This is another piece. These tags are because it's, these are just pulled right from the auction. But this is an interesting thing. This is James Madison signed ship's passport, and I had one.
What do you mean, passport for a ship?
Yeah, and we had one the other day. What's interesting, you see this scallop top. Right. That was because there used to be another piece at the port that they would actually match it up to confirm that this was the right passport. And this actually tells you the ship's name. And
to come into the United States?
What?
To come into the United States?
Yes. And actually different ports.
Wow.
And everything of this nature.
What do you have behind you?
Oh, well, there's all kinds of different things. Okay, well, aviation. Well, we were talking about all the excitement. You love the sports, and everybody has their own facet. So here's like something that it's just a little piece of the Skylab, but Skylab 1, which was the first orbited Skylab. It came back down to Earth, and this is a piece of it that they found in the 70s, and they encased it. But now we have other things that flew to the moon.
What's that? The big one, the frame.
Well, talking about flying, this is actually from the Wright brothers. And what's interesting about this piece, now there's Orville and Wilbur, right? You got the two brothers. Well, one of them is rarer than the other. Right. And this one is signed by Wilbur Wright because it says Wright Brothers, and right underneath it says WW. And that was Wilbur Wright. That's the way to tell that it's actually signed by Wilbur Wright. Where this one, if you go to the other one, it's signed, it's a check here. It's also a check from the same their same checking account, but this one's signed by Orville Wright. So basically, between the two of them, you got Wilbur.
One signs it the Wright brothers. One's it. Wow.
Right, and it's rare to find.
And how much do they go for?
Well, Wilbur is the rare one. Orville lived about 1948, so he lived kind of quite a while. So he's not quite as rare. He's probably worth like $500 to $800. Now Wilbur, on the other hand, died early at 1912. I believe. So he didn't really go that long. Remember 1903 is the flight. So his value is actually much more. His value would be between $2,500 to $3,000 because there's just not that much material signed by Wilbur.
So for us people that sports collect or aviation collect, move a little closer to your mic.
Sure, of course.
Okay,
of course.
So when you start, you clean out your grandmother's or grandfather's or aunts, uncle's garage, go through it.
Go. What
Not
would you do?
We make this. Don't throw it all away.
No, no.
If you throw it away, call you.
One man's trash can be another man's treasure. Except
it sounds like my ex-wife. I'm trash to somebody.
No. But what happens is, of course, if there could be things that are historically important or autographs, but I think nowadays a lot more people are familiar with it than it used to be. And one other here, like here's a neat piece too that you can find here, which is the This I liked because it was just something here. I'll show you over here or wherever.
Okay, Tommy, front camera, please.
That actually saying this is actually signed by the Mercury 7, the right stuff. The original.
Who's that?
Well, you got the 7, the original 7, which you got Scott Carpenter, Gus Grissom, you got Cooper, you got Glenn, you got Shepard, Shearer, Slayton, right? And then you got Walter, right? Was it? I just went blank. So you got the 7 of them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, he's not one of them. So that's what threw me off here. He's actually one of the other guys. It's an interesting piece. I haven't seen it. He's not one of the original 7. That's what threw me off. It's signed by all of them, plus probably one of the sheep here. But they're all in sheriff badges with a hat. I haven't seen this picture.
Pretty cool.
This just actually came in the other day, so I wasn't even getting a chance to study, but I thought it was such a neat piece.
So it's not just you for men or kids, boys and girls who collect baseball cards or football cards, hockey cards, you comics. When you go through the old things,
there's like you said,
I got a comic that's worth a lot of money.
Well, there's
$25.
Okay,
but point of
the Superman 1 issue or those comic books, rare comic. What happens is I think it brings people back to a time when they were younger, and there's nothing like even Forbes. His favorite collectible was actually his autographs. He said, because it wasn't just an investment, it was actually having able to hold something that was written by Abraham Lincoln. Of course, he had the House Divided speech or the Emancipation Proclamation signed, and he had some amazing pieces. But he also had I've had a lot of Forbes material like Napoleon's and things. So he loved having an investment that you could actually appreciate. It's not like stock that's kind of, there, but you might not have it. This is something you really can actually feel, appreciate, and there's an attachment to it. Just like for you, sports.
It's funny because I go through, not the ones in the 60s. I remember getting whoever it was, and I remember where I got it, what store I got it, Al's Drugs, 124th Street. And I remember getting certain cards.
And that brings you back to that time. And
I was trying to stay back in that time.
Well, and you've done a good job because you always like the sports.
But it's funny. You go through here.
Yeah. You're a coach. You're a coach, right?
Yeah, a little bit was. Yeah. Everybody was.
Right.
And, but it's interesting watching, these players change. And now I look through here, there's managers of football, baseball, basketball. Right. So, all right. So garage sales, if you have any old stuff, got a question, you can reach out to David.
Sure, you can send me an email to david@oakauctions.com.
Just Oak Auctions. They go on that webpage.
You can send an email, and because when I say an email, like maybe a photo or two, because that's the best way.
Okay, but right now it's oakauctions.com. They go on there, and there's a place to leave a message.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so you have an auction coming up when?
Yeah, actually, we have an auction tomorrow night, Thursday. It's basically has a 30-minute roll. It's at 8 p.m. And we have some amazing pieces from Martin Luther King signed pieces of George Washington, and a Helen Keller letter talking about how she was set free. I mean, really amazing.
For people, I used to collect signatures.
Right.
Do not leave them in a room that has light.
Right.
They're going to fade.
Yes.
If they're on a white football, they're going to fade.
They will. Light will hurt it, and daylight will hurt it, and even,
right. So be careful. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to your auction. Where do I find it?
At oakauctions.com.
I'm excited about that. Let's close this out. Anything else, David?
No, I think that pretty much is it. And it's just enjoy collecting and always collect what you enjoy, and it'll always be fun too. All right. Oakauctions.com. David Gindy. And Grant Miller, have a great day.